Hi, my name is Soile, and you're listening to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. This is the season two finale of this podcast. Time has flown by. It almost feels like I just started this season. But then when I think back to what was happening at the time of the season two launch of this podcast, it feels like forever ago. It didn't really start the way I wanted to. Looking back, we had the sad passing of Robert in the first episode of this season. So I'm hoping that I'm able to give you something more positive to end the season. So yeah, in this episode, I have René Escobar Jr. joining me. We first met him in season 16, and we got to know his character a little bit. And I was able to interview him a couple of days ago, and it went well. Unfortunately, there was one small part that I had to edit out because the audio was really bad. So I'm bummed about that, but I got most of it to share with you. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you on the flip side. So, in this episode, I have another guest joining me. Us Heartland fans know him as Edwin Silvera, but today I'm hoping to get to know more about the actor behind the role. Welcome to Heartland, René Escobar Jr.
You got it. You nailed it. Good. Really happy to be here. Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. I just had to fire out a last minute audition, and I know we were scheduled for half an hour earlier, so I really appreciate you pushing that for me. But I'm good. I'm kind of coming out of a cold, so my voice is a little bit on the extra raspier side, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm almost back to 100%. I would say like I'm at 60%, but yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm really excited that you're able to do this. And let's just start with the questions. Because you are a new addition to the Heartland family, I had to do a little research to kind of get an idea what we could talk about today. And I found out that you have a criminology degree. Now, how does a criminal lawyer become an actor? Like, what was that like?
So yeah, you are correct. I do have a criminology degree. I guess growing up, I always wanted to be an actor, but never like from a practical, a way to make it a career. It
Mm,
was always like, I love making stupid videos before videos were a thing, and doing impersonations and being funny and being the class clown and just having almost like really, I guess you call it like frantic energy.
hmm
I guess the only way that I would express it would be through being, I guess, artistic, or doing that kind of silly stuff. And I remember like the first stuff that I was doing when I was growing up was like me and my friends would get together and redo the Celebrity Jeopardy episodes of Saturday Night Live. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've seen that.
yeah.
But yeah, my friend would like impersonate Will Ferrell impersonating Alex Trebek, and I would do
Mm.
like the Sean Connery, speaking like that. And that was like really fun. But yeah, so I went to I honestly I thought drama and theater was kind of silly in high school. In university, I kind of felt the same way. But I went to university for criminology, and I did it for 1 year. And then during my second year, my school went on strike. And that was like the first time in my life that I kind of sat down and was like, well, the first time that I sat down, I'm like, well, what do I want to do really in my life?
Yeah.
This path is kind of set for you in a way. So I sat down and I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to be an actor, not knowing what that entails, not knowing anything about acting, just saying like, you know what? Like, I know, like, I have fun doing it and I want to do it and I want to move to LA and do it. And my dad was like, listen, as a normal father would do, listen, you're kind of out of your mind right now. So, you know what? Finish your degree and then you can do whatever the hell you want. So I did that, and I finished. The more that I progressed in my degree, I loved it. I love criminology. I love anything to do with law and criminality and the forensics and the psychology behind crime and whatnot, and that really fascinates me. But it just didn't. There was nothing more to it. I wish I had that passion. So once I did graduate university, I was like, okay, you know what? I totally do not want to do this as a
Yeah.
career. I like it. It's cool. I like learning about it, but I do not want to do it. My sister's a lawyer.
Mm.
And I guess in a way, maybe thinking about it, it was like, it also has to do with me not wanting to do the same thing as her. She's just such an amazing lawyer, and she's really good at what she does. And I don't think that I could be better at that. So I'm like, you know what? I need maybe part of it. I'm just speculating here. So I'm like, I need to do my own thing, and be really good at that. And then I kind of started taking acting classes. I was so shy. I was so shy. Like, I know I don't come off as an introvert whatsoever, but when it comes to like performing and reading a monologue and being performative, but also sticking to a script, I was just petrified. And I remember like the first acting classes that I took, it was like a 6-week thing, and I would pay in full, and I would do 2 weeks and just kind of run away.
Oh no.
Run away. Yeah, I remember this class in Toronto, and I went the first class, and the first class was kind of cool because it was for beginners, and like we had to do exercises, and one of the exercises was like, okay, go in the middle, we all formed a circle, go in the middle and say your name and do an action with your name, which is like a classic,
Oh
intro
man.
to theater thing, right? And I was like,
Mm.
oh, this is cool, this is acting, this is fun. So like I would go in and do something. And then the second week it was, okay, guys, so we're going to prep for your monologues. Hear your monologues, and then you're going to perform in front of the class. And that was, I guess, like the first time where I was confronted with at least part of what acting really is. It's not just improvising, it's sticking to a script that, very talented writers put work and effort into. And I just bailed. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. Screw you guys. I'm in a way, it was like, yeah, I was shy, and at the same time I was like, I'm too good for that. you know and then I realized I was not too good for that. I was actually quite shitty. So I ended up kind of just going to different classes and facing my fears.
Mm.
But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and then one thing led to another.
Yeah, it was just unexpected when I read about it. I was like, wait a minute, did I read that right? Because that's
Yeah.
not usually something you read about an actor, having something like that in the past. So I was like, I have to ask about this because that's interesting.
And one more thing too, going to that. So in my second last year of university, I actually had to do. I never did any practical work.
Mm.
So this was the first time that I actually got a chance to do an internship as part of my program. So I went to Spain, to Valencia, Spain, actually, and I worked for, it's a mouthful, the Office of International Relations at the University of Valencia, and I was working for a wing in the department dealing with the Erasmus exchange program. I don't know if you're familiar with it, living in Finland.
Not sure.
Law, I don't know the exact definition, but essentially it's a contract that a bunch of European universities have within each other, where they can kind of do
Mm,
exchanges within
right,
their
right.
universities.
Yeah.
So I was helping facilitate that, but that was like the first time that I ever had a chance to sit down and do, even it was a glimpse of what my life could be, doing paperwork and doing all that kind of stuff. And I was like,
Mm,
that was like the last drop in the glass. I'm like, there's no way I can do this. There's no
yeah.
way.
So you have like a fascination with that kind of stuff, but like coming from that background, do you find as an actor, if you have a preference playing the bad guy or a good guy, like because you sort of have an understanding of both sides, maybe?
Yeah. I think it depends on the script. I totally love playing a bad guy.
Mm,
It's kind of maybe my thing of kind of wanting to get under people's skin.
mm,
And again, like that kind of developed, being the youngest having an older sister rather, and trying to get under her skin,
mm,
so I practiced nice and early. And I just, again, like I had like this, and I think I still do it, just like this energy, which is like super frantic, and it just needs to be kind of diluted into something that's good.
Yeah.
something that's good. But yeah, I was a shit disturber growing up, and I really do indulge playing bad guys. I also like playing good guys, but the thing is, like when I read a script, I'll never call myself the good guy or the bad guy.
Mm,
Like I'll find out what I want, and I'll justify it in great ways, and
yeah.
I think that's what makes a good villain. Not that I played a villain per se,
Yeah.
but that's what makes a really bad character not a caricature, because in a way they've done these horrible things, but it's justified because it's coming from, I guess, a good place, or
Mm,
it's their reasons. That's why,
yeah.
like, when I watch movies and I watch a movie of like this, like, bad guy, and there's like no reason behind him being bad. He's just wanting to be bad. It's like, okay, well, this is corny. I don't buy it.
They don't think they're the bad guys. They think that they're the good guys. And then it's just like about perspective, really.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
You've done, on top of acting on TV and films, you've also done theater and voice acting. Is there a discipline that you prefer, the most, or is it just like having fun with all of them?
Good question. I totally am into film and TV. If I had to choose between those two, it would be film. Like my dream is to like be in those like gritty like Scorsese movies, like
Mm.
not, well, I was gonna say Inception. Inception is totally not Martin Scorsese, but like those dramatic roles in film and TV. But I honestly I love voiceover and theater work, and I find that it's a completely different skill set. And that was something that I learned, I guess, not the hard way, but through trial and error. I was under the impression that, if I'm an experienced film and TV actor and I know what I'm doing in that alley, it'll be a very easy transition for me to do voice work, and it'll be a very easy transition to do theater. And yes, obviously there's some things that you can extrapolate from being a film actor, but it's just an entirely different discipline. It's insane. Like for voice work, all you hear is the person's voice, right? That is it. So you have to be like in film and TV. I feel like I have my eyes, I have my mannerisms, I have my body language, the environment, the music in the back. It's all selling what I'm trying to tell you as an
Yeah.
actor. So my voice is one of the weapons. Whereas voice work, that's it. And whoever is listening to that has to believe that you're in it. So I did one of the projects that I worked on was this video game called Far Cry 6,
Mm.
and I had to do a lot of like the military operative call outs, like get down, or like flank on the right. Once we get there, we light their ass up, something like that. But you really have to get into it.
Yeah.
Like when I do, I can only speak for myself, but when I'm in that booth, like I'm in there, because I have to convince the person who's listening to it. And don't get me started on theater. Theater was such a massive learning curve for me. Oh my goodness. One of the biggest differences that I found in doing theater as in comparison to film was your voice projection. Speaking of voice projection, I don't know if you can see how
No, it's
raspy my voice is, but
that's
as long as
good.
we're good. Yeah, the voice projection. Whereas film and TV, it's very intimate. It's right here. You have a boom mic. You have microphones that pick up everything, and you don't really have to push it if you don't have to. Whereas an intimate moment on stage between two people, that last person in the audience has to hear it too. So for me, that was one of the difficulties, because I'm like, well, for me, being intimate with someone in film and TV, you can't be intimate with someone if you're yelling like that,
Yeah.
So that was something, but there is a way, and I was very fortunate to be surrounded with people who had forgotten more about theater than I've learned. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? Like they just have so much more experience than I did, and I was very lucky that I had very experienced actors working for me during that stint.
Yeah, and I would imagine when you're on stage, it's just like hard because it's just one take. The response is immediate. Like with your TV work, it's like, okay, let's do that again, and with a little bit of shift or something like that. But theater, it's like
Absolutely,
you're there. That's it. Okay.
absolutely.
I was going through your Instagram kind of trying to get to know you a little bit, and I saw that you have a passion for playing drums.
Yes.
Um, do you have like a favorite song to play with drums? The one that gets the rock star to come out, or I don't know, like what's that like?
Oh man, there's so many really, really good ones. The ones that come to mind are it's kind of like it's a niche following, so not many people are going to know it. But
Hmm?
I'm a huge metalhead. I may not appear as a metalhead, but I love metal. I've been drumming metal since I was 14, I think.
Hmm.
That's when I got my first drum set. One of the songs that really gets me going is called Omerta by Lamb of God. And it's one of those things that, it's first of all, it's somewhat very simplistic to drum, and the beat is, I love it. It's like one of the first
Insane.
songs that, yeah, anytime that I do a jam session, like that's the song that I'll start off with. But maybe a more mainstream song that I love to drum is it's a Van Halen song. Oh no, is it Van Halen? Shook Me All Night Long. No, AC/DC.
Hmm.
Shook Me All Night Long.
Yeah.
It's so good. The drums behind her are just so good. And any
Yeah.
Metallica song. Lars Ulrich, not the most talented drummer out there, but he does his job.
Yeah.
You know, I follow a lot of like Scandinavian metal bands too.
Yeah.
Um,
We have a lot of them. That's how I
you
was
guys
like,
have a lot.
yeah.
You guys have a lot. There's a
Yeah.
huge metal scene over there, which is
Yeah.
fascinating.
I also found out that when you were young, you were living kind of in different places, but one of the places that you lived in was Panama, right?
That's right.
So, what's your favorite thing about your Panamanian roots or heritage? Because I have to say, I don't know much about Panama or that culture, so I'm really interested to hear about your roots.
I was born in Canada. My whole family, my mom, my dad, blood wise, we're Panamanian. We're from Panama. And Panama is a very small country in Central America. Population, I think just over 3 million, potentially 3.5 million. So a very small country. The language is Spanish over there. Probably the most famous thing of Panama is the Panama Canal.
Yeah,
Without it,
that's one of the
right?
things that I know.
Right. That's like the first thing that people think of. And yeah, I lived in Panama for about, I want to say 5 years during my childhood. So I went to school there. And even though I've lived the majority of my life outside of Panama, I would say like the culture that I identify the most with is my Panamanian culture, because my parents, we speak Spanish at the house. I eat Panamanian food. I grew up, I wouldn't say the word isn't mentality, but just like with a Panamanian, in a Panamanian household. So very hardworking, my parents are immigrants, very hard workers. They came to this country with nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that was instilled in me was, even though I grew up with not needing anything, not needing a thing, because my parents provided everything for me that I would need. But that hardworking mentality, the mentality of nothing's going to come to you, you have to go and get it. Whereas I find that the Canadian side of me is very passive. It's very like, oh, things are going to come.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, that kind of thing. Yeah, growing up in Panama and and I'm very tied to my Panamanian roots. I love it. It's part of my life. It's part of my identity. I still have very close friends in Panama. My entire extended family lives in Panama. And it honestly is such a beautiful country with beautiful people. And I don't work for the tourism agency or anything
You
like that, but you
could.
should totally take a visit. I'll sell it to you. I'll sell it to you. But you should definitely, if you have time, it's such a beautiful place. It has everything you would want for a vacation spot, really.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Heartland because this is a Heartland podcast after all. Did you know about the show before your auditioning?
Yeah, I did. Growing up in Canada, obviously, like Heartland
Yeah.
is a massive staple.
Do you remember the audition process and like the character description and how you approached that role?
Yeah. First of all, I live in Toronto and the show shoots in Calgary. This is the first time that a role has been available for me to audition for Heartland.
Mm.
I've never auditioned for Heartland. When I got that role, I read the script and I was like, oh wait, like this is a really the script has a lot of substance to it. To be honest, I never watched the show. I never like it's not the kind of show that I would watch at the time. And I was like, okay, well, obviously every time that I'm auditioning for something, I need to watch an episode of the show to kind of get the tone. Like I knew a lot about Heartland, but I didn't watch an episode. And then I'm like, okay, so I'll just go on Netflix and watch it. And then I watched one episode, and I'm like, oh, well, I think I need to do more research, so let me watch the second episode. And then before you know it, I watched like 4 episodes, like just back to back to back.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is actually like we need more of this TV out there because it's so wholehearted, it's familial, a lot of values that I feel have been lost during our time right now. Like it's a lot about work, 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 not so much about sitting down, taking it in and, being there with your family. And I couldn't help but like smile after every episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that was so nice. And but yeah, so going back to the audition, so I got the script, and I remember reading it and being like, oh, okay, so this guy he's a little how do I put it, harsh. He's a bit of a harsh guy,
Yeah.
which I totally would love to play that because I will find the juice in any role, but I definitely identify with more roles that the person is. The word isn't genuine, but it's more so like there's a quote. It says like I rather tell you the hard truth than a sweet lie, And this guy's the kind of person who would be like, hey, does this shirt look good on me? And I think when I read the script, I would be like, no, it doesn't. It honestly doesn't. Like it's not your color. You totally look better in a different color, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I read the script and I watched the shows and I'm like, okay, I totally have permission to go there. And for my audition, one of the scenes was the opening scene. The opening scene of I think it was episode 13 when Amy comes to Fairfield and I tell her, yo, you can't park there.
Yeah.
You can't park there. And off the bat, like I already felt like I was very connected to that role. And, I did the audition and I was looking at it and I was like, man, it's a bit too harsh. It's a bit too harsh. And I'm like, no, it's written in the script. This is exactly how they want it. And this is how I'm going to do it. So I just submitted it. And, next thing you know, I got the call and I was on hold essentially. So like I was basically told, we love you, but we also love these 2 other actors. That's what I assumed. But then I got confirmation and I'm like, yes, awesome. Got it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I was so excited to be around horses because I love horses.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, were you familiar with horses or horse culture before you did the show? Because your character is working on a, stable.
Right. I'm by no means a horse. I don't call myself a horse rider. I am not a horse enthusiast by any means. But again, growing up in Panama, I didn't grow up in the country, but when you visit the country in Panama, horse culture is huge, and I've ridden horses like when I was a kid. I've ridden horses even as an adult. And every time that I would do it, it wouldn't be many times that I did it, but every time that I would do it, honestly, like I felt like there was a connection between me and the horse. And horses are they're just so different, honestly. I know it might sound a bit corny, but like, I don't want to say that they listen to you, but there's an energy, there's a connection between you and that animal.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience with your Heartland co-stars like Amber Marshall, Jessica Steen, Elia Abreu-Cap, and I believe Chris Potter directed 2 of the 3 episodes you were in last season?
I get jitters anytime I walk into a new set, but I don't get nervous. I prepare myself. It's my job. I honestly treat it as a job. Why would I be nervous about a job? That's never really been an issue for me. However, this was an exception. I will admit I was very nervous after I got the role. And then I kind of started I got all the paperwork and I would see the cast and I would see the crew. And the reason that I was so nervous is because I've never been on a show that's been together for 15 seasons, 15 years. I didn't really realize that until maybe like a couple of days before I was going to shoot. And I was just like I was looking at all the cast and the cast was the same. And I go on. I was pretty nervous because I felt like I was going to be like the new kid in school, and
Yeah.
everyone already has friends and stuff like that, and you don't want to screw up. You know,
Mm,
when you're doing a movie, everyone's there for just that time, and when you're doing a show, max like what, 6 seasons, 7 seasons, maybe.
mm,
Like you'd be hard pressed to find a show that's been on for more than 10 years or something.
yeah.
Not this one though. So I got there, and wardrobe was cool and everything was fine, but I was still like super antsy and super nervous, especially about meeting Amber because like growing up, she's Amy from Heartland.
Yeah.
Like if you're Canadian, this is if you're and especially if you're a Canadian actor, like this has been part of your childhood, whether you watch a show or not. You just
Mm,
know. So I get there, and then everyone knows each other on set.
yeah.
Everyone. It's like, hey, Jim, how are the kids? Oh yeah, little Steve is 5, and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, drinking my coffee, and honestly, it evaporated right away as soon as like I just like talked to them. As soon as I spoke to them, the most down to earth people. Everybody is so nice. The first cast member I think I met was Amber,
Mm,
and you would honestly think that she was what we call a day player, like one of the actors that's there just for the day. And,
yeah.
you would never think that this is the lead of the show. And she's been here for 15 plus years. And everything, the entire show, the majority of the show revolves around her arc and whatnot. The most down to earth person talked about how awesome it is to living. I don't live in Calgary, but like being in the prairies and how awesome the prairies are because she's originally from Ontario. It was so chill. It was honestly so chill. And I think, I've been on sets where the lead of the show, and I've worked with pretty big names where the leads of the shows or the leads of the movies are dicks, like
Mm,
they're jerks. And maybe I catch them on bad days, or maybe, they have a lot of pressure. And you know what? I never take it personal because it's my job.
yeah.
But I sincerely appreciate when the one or the two, the leads of the show, they're just so down to earth because it trickles down. If the lead of the show is going to be a dick, then rest assured, catering is going to be, craft is going to be, they're going to be jerks. The other actors are going to be like, well, if this is what we're dealing with, then I'm not going to be the only nice person. Amber was so dope. Who else? Oh yeah, Jessica Steen. Jessica
Mm,
Steen is like,
living
oh my
legend.
god, oh what a legend. Like as soon as I met her, like I met her that day where we were shooting at Fairfield,
Mm,
and it was super cold. Like just like we were in the car waiting for the AD to give us the go so we can hit our marks and shoot the scene. And he was just telling me about how she lived in LA and did all these amazing shows and all these amazing projects. And I'm just like, holy crap! Like you were just and her personality is so vibrant and so contagious. Like just talking to her for 2 minutes, your confidence just goes so up.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? We had a brief, like we had a bit of an interaction, and just just talking to her, and she's just like, yeah, this, yeah, that, boom, I did this, I did that, blah blah blah, and in like the coolest way. And she was just someone that I honestly, watching her work too, watching her like not just behind the scenes, but actually when we were doing scenes together, because we didn't have an exact, yeah, we had that opening scene, but she had more scenes with Amber
mm,
for the rest of that episode. But I would be watching, I wouldn't just be sitting in my trailer. I would try to like stay back and watch them work. And she's so good. She's so grounded, And for me, if I'm working with really grounded actors, it's contagious.
yeah.
I'm going to be more grounded. If there's nervous energy, I'm going to be nervous. And she was just so dope. And who else did you mention? Oh, Elia.
Elliot, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because,
She is like,
you're playing a dad, so that relationship is kind of more established off screen because you've had that relationship for years, supposedly. But then you're like, okay, this is new person, and it's a tiny person, and I'm like, how does that like evolve that working relationship with someone so young and playing their dad and all?
honestly, I knew off the get go that working with Elio was going to be just So much fun. So the first time that I met her, and then I met her dad.
Yeah.
And her dad, like we hit it off right away, and we both speak Spanish. I believe they're Venezuelan, from
Mm.
Venezuela, I believe so. And we just, we just talked in Spanish, and that already created a connection between us two.
Yeah.
And she spoke Spanish too, and she was honestly just so she was so funny, like so unintentionally funny. Working with kids on set, it kind of takes away, like, I get the seriousness
Yeah.
of things. You know, like, yes, this is your job, but then you see Elia, and she's just like sitting there smiling, like ha 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 ha, and you're like, oh, we can have fun. You know, like it kind of,
Yeah.
humbles you a bit and relaxes you a bit. And yeah, I think throughout the scenes that we had, she would make me laugh, and then I would make her laugh, just doing like stupid stuff that no one else would think it's funny, but she did.
But that's,
Um,
what dads and daughters do. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
sweet.
and I honestly, like, after watching after watching the scenes, I really think it resonated, and the fact that I also get along with her parents is huge. Like, her
Mm.
parents are so supportive, and a lot. I've worked with kids before, and a lot of some of the parents can be very demanding of their kids. Putting a lot of pressure on a young performer, which I would not. I don't know anything about it. I was never a young performer, but I've seen it. But it was not the case here. It was just like, what's organic is going to happen, and they're going to support it. And it was just so beautiful having her and just laughing and just being silly and being stupid. That's what it was.
Yeah. I know you didn't have a lot of scenes with Chris Potter, but he was directing you in these episodes. So what was that like? Because I've heard people talk about, because he is an actor, he has maybe a little bit different approach to directing as well. Like, did that come across to you while you were filming season 16?
1000%. I don't know who you heard that from, but that's very accurate. When I work, I expect the director to know what he's doing, or she's doing, and I know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and we complement each other. And at the end of the day, I can't direct, and the director can't act.
Hmm.
And for me, that was kind of like that's always been kind of I guess the ace up my sleeve, because it's like, okay, that's what you want, okay, but I'm going to twist it, I'm going to do it my own way, and we're going to have a final product. We'll meet in the middle. We'll have a
Hmm.
nice final product,
Yeah.
but we're going to meet in the middle. When you work with someone who is as decorated as of an actor as Chris is, and he's the director, I wouldn't say it's not hard, but you just have to step my game up so much higher. And I honestly feel like that made me a better actor than just doing what I know works, but pushing the envelope even further. And as an actor, I believe that there's never an end point to being a great actor.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, I've reached it, boom. No, there's always more to discover. There's always more to discover. And yeah, like the way that I did the scene this way, it can work, but it can work so much better if we do this, or if we push this. And I responded so well to his feedback. And I always like to know how directors work, because then it'll just be a lot easier of a process, because it's their set. And once I kind of got a feel of how Chris works, I even reached out to him while we're on set, and I'm like, hey, like, how could I do that better? Or like, was that good for you? Like, because the feedback, it was very specific. It's very specific, very practical feedback that he would give me as an actor. And I'm like, dude, not only am I working on this amazing show, but I'm getting a free acting class.
Yeah.
Literally, like, people would pay freaking thousands of dollars for Chris to tell you this stuff, to give you this insight. It's, at least in my, I guess, objectively speaking, my small career this far, I don't think I've learned more from a director than I did from Chris during those episodes.
Well, that's nice to hear, because we only see the final product, but I'm always fascinated by the behind the scenes stuff as well. So Now, before we go, I heard you have a couple of movies coming out. Can you give us a little bit information about those? Like if people are interested in checking those out or whatever you have in the works right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a movie and a series that's coming out. I'm not sure. They're definitely going to be coming out in 2023, but I don't have exact dates yet.
Yeah.
The show that I'm going to be working on is called Gray, and that is going to be with that is with Patricia Clarkson and Rupert Everett,
Oh,
and I'll
nice.
be recurring on that show. And it was one of those experiences where like my first day on set, my first scene was with Patricia and Rupert. He's an Oscar nominee. He's a Golden Globe winner. I'm like, yeah, no pressure, none at all. I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm like
You know, I'm
sweating
chill,
bullets.
literally. But it ended up being so amazing, and it's a great show. It's an espionage thriller. It's a must watch. Patricia Clarkson is a beast. She's unreal. And then I have a Lionsgate movie where I'll be one of the leads. It's called Dear David with Justin Long, and that is coming out, I believe, I don't know, I don't have an exact date, but sometime later in 2023. It's a horror movie based on a viral Twitter thread about a kid who haunts a guy's apartment, an evil kid. It's insane. It's scary as shit.
Oh, I might have
Have you heard about this?
heard about yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
might check that
So
out.
we made a movie out of it, so it'll come out sometime this year. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of scary.
Yeah, well, I love horror movies, even though, Heartland is kind of the opposite of that, but it's kind of, I love both worlds,
Well, you
that.
need Heartland to balance out your
Yeah.
ability to watch another horror movie.
Yeah, yeah. But thank you for doing this. I really appreciate your time and giving us this experience, from the Heartland world because that's what we're here for. So yeah, thank you. And for anyone interested, you have Instagram. I talked about that. Where can people find you? Otherwise, like Twitter or
Instagram is probably the best, and it's just my name, René Escobar Jr. All in like yeah, no spaces, no underscores, nothing.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You really wonderful questions. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. So that was that. Like I said earlier, this is the season two finale. So I'm gonna be taking a few months off, and by the time season 17 launches, I think I will be back for season three. Even though the YouTube channel of this podcast goes quiet and you no longer have something new to stream every week, I will be posting some stuff during the summer to the Instagram account, H2HL Podcast. So if you follow that, you'll be seeing me a little bit. And if you don't, but are interested seeing some things like maybe I do a live sometime or talk about the clues we're given from the set. I don't know. We'll see. I want to give special thanks to Sarah, who joined me for the fan fiction writing episode, and then Afia, Izzy, Lisa, Kristen, and Stephanie, who joined me for the Halloween episode rewatch, and of course, Aiden and Renee, who gave me an opportunity to interview them. And I also want to thank you if you're listening to this right now. And if you commented, if you shared, like if you interacted with me in any way, or if you just, listened in silence, I still want to thank you because it means a lot that people take time to actually check out this podcast and have a listen and comment or whatever. So thank you. And until next fall, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. Bye.